Hi, y'all. Tempting though it is to keep responding to all these endless Vice panels wherein ludicrous lunatics take L's forever, there is a reason I have a no turd twice rule, albeit a loose rule. I can't just do the same dank old shizzle over and over again, so guess who I'm responding to next? A good old-fashioned bedroom feminist. Yes, I have done that hundreds of times before, but the point is there are millions of different ones. And you've got to admit, it's been a while. Yes, there is a great deal of other seriously serious stuff to talk about, but I guess I'll save that for the return of Munted News. This one's gonna be lit. But in the meantime, why not indulge me in my nostalgia? And thanks to whoever requested this, I can't remember who. Please request things, by the way. It helps. Alright, let's go.
Bonjour, my name is Alice. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about female rage. I'm not your
But female what now?
I'm not your babe.
Oh, rage! Okay. If your video got demonetized, it's probably because the subtitle bots thought you said something else there. Anyhow, female rage. Yes, I would like to understand female rage. Feeling cute might commit treason later.
Female rage is more often than not connected to toxicity.
More often than not is not as often as always, which is how it seems to work with every other kind of rage.
Because there's a big difference between a woman who displays sadness and a woman who displays anger. The first one is acting emotional, but she's still womanly. With sadness, what we consider as femininity is preserved. On the other hand, women who display anger are seen as bossy, unattractive, unwomanly. They have lost their femininity.
If we're just looking at stereotypes, i.e. what is considered, then surely any emotion is considered womanly because women are considered emotional. That's not me talking, that's the stereotype talking. I will leave it up to the discerning listener to ascertain how true that stereotype might be. But I think what you've observed there is that men are considered less manly when they express sadness or fear or even happiness to some extent. If they express rage or anger, they are also considered toxic. Come on to think of it, they're considered toxic if they express any emotion whatsoever, or no emotion whatsoever, or anything in between. It seems that they are toxic by default until a critical mass of women inform them otherwise. In any case, men generally cannot use emotions to get what they want. Women can, and they do. As a matter of fact, or at least as a matter of study, women's tears contain certain chemical signatures that actually decrease testosterone levels and sexual desire in men. We have certain descriptors for chemicals that have deleterious effects on the body, don't we? I could think of one off the top of my head. So if any human emotion can feasibly be called toxic, it's women's sadness.
And it's a pretty big deal in a society like ours that still revolves around the gender binary.
Could you go ahead and name me a society, a human society, that doesn't revolve around a gender binary? It would have to be some kind of society where cisgendered people are persecuted in the name of non-binary people.
In fact, when you think about it, a woman who refuses to shut up might lose job opportunities, she might not be perceived as girlfriend material, marriageable.
A woman who refuses to shut up is I think what you said there. If you recall, we're talking about women who display rage. But thank you for clarifying. It turns out we're talking about women who refuse to ever stop constantly displaying rage in their workplaces and in their personal relationships and so on. They get up in the morning, they start screaming at their toothbrush, they scream into their breakfast, they go to work screaming at every pigeon they pass in the street, and then they scream at their customers and their co-workers and their boss, and then they go home and scream at their kids for a few hours, and then when her husband comes home, she does this. Perhaps as per usual, and bless her little cotton socks, she refuses to stop, ever. Yes, I can conceive of how this kind of behaviour might be seen as detrimental to your future, to your prospects as a wife or girlfriend, but I can also conceive of a woman acting like this and yet never facing any consequences. Because consequences would be misogyny or something.
In an interview done 5 years ago, Uma Thurman was asked about her opinion on the recent events, and by recent events we mean the Weinstein affairs, and you can tell that she's angry. You can see her clenched jaw.
You know she's an actress, right? It's a pretty convincing one as things go. I too could be considered a pretty convincing actor, but that's not going to save me from anything. Such is my ongoing point.
It's hard in that type of situation to not feel angry. Angry for the women who have spoken up, angry about yourself for not speaking earlier, angry about the other directors that continue to be praised despite showing clear signs that they are just as problematic.
Let me tell you something about actors and actresses. Possibly more so when it comes to actresses. Perhaps that's why there's more of them. No matter how difficult it is not to feel something, you can still act as though you don't feel it. Or vice versa. Even if you don't feel something, you can act as though you do. Yes, that does indeed mean we need to hold the apparent demeanour of professional actors and actresses to a higher standard than to which we hold others. That might sound unfair, but I'm saying this as an actor, having rehearsed what I'm currently saying. And performativity is not limited to the stage and screen. It happens in everyday life all the time. Liars rehearse their lies, even if they only rehearse them silently, up here. By all means, hold me to that standard, but that standard should not end at me or at any actor or actress. It should not end anywhere, because everyone does it. Everyone lies. Are any of you telling me that you've never lied to anyone? Not even your parents? Not even your children? Yeah. Do pull the other one. There are some people listening to this who are awfully hot and bothered right now, but they'll never admit it, because they're not even actors. They're just liars. Lying to the most important people in their lives, as you do.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I got angry a lot of times while I was researching, writing this video. I still get angry when I watch a movie directed by them.
Them? As in, they? What do you mean by they? What are we doing here, Cupid?
The great directors of our era.
Uh-huh.
And see how they continue to sexualize kids, teenage girls, and only look at young women through a hyper-male gazy lens.
Yeah, it's not because they happen to be mostly... It's because they're mostly men whose job it is to direct a movie, which for the most part involves gazing at a screen on the other end of the camera and at the human visages on that screen. And they can't help gazing as males on account of they are males. Yes, I'm aware that the male gaze is a very loaded, long-standing trope of feminism. I'm just saying... It is yet more misandric bullshit.
In France, Adèle Haenel, who you might know from Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
I do not.
expressed her anger by leaving the César ceremony right after Polanski, who's been accused of essay, earned yet another prize. And guess what? People did not like it. On the other hand, Thurman was praised in magazines, newspapers for containing her anger.
It's the professional thing to do. Containing your anger is the professional thing to do, unless you are engaging in your profession of acting angry. And even that could be called containing it, mastering it in a controlled context. I quite often express anger in these videos, but if only you could see the outtakes. Like one moment I'm screaming into the camera, and the next I'm going, I screwed that take up. Start again. Yes, it is disingenuous, but that's the whole point of acting. But you're not supposed to be disingenuous when you're not acting. But granted, it's not disingenuous to walk out in protest at the appearance of some Hollywood nonce. I'm sure there are some people who don't like it when you do that, because there are some people who are determined to protect their impermeable ring of Hollywood noncery. But they don't like it when men walk out either, or speak out about their experiences being nonced in Hollywood. You know how patriarchy hurts men too? Well, so does Hollywood. And Hollywood exists. I don't just mean the physical town in California. I mean the movie industry. I'm not sure why we call that industry Hollywood, especially given how many and how much of those movies are filmed in the Greater London district, for instance. But you get what I mean.
We know we behave correctly when we don't shout. And again, that's not limited to women. We'll connect the dots at the end of the video, don't worry.
Oh, I'm not worried. I mean, I am, just not about you. I'll never meet you.
Feminist scholar Amya Srinivasan put a phrase on it so we can better understand it. She called it affective injustice. It's defined as the tendency to incite victims of oppression to let go of their anger, to facilitate better discussions, to bring about the end of their oppression.
Being incited to let go of your anger is nothing compared with when people quote-unquote cancel you so as to literally erase the record of whatever emotions they fabricate you having. Imagine if your anger, or even just your polite assertiveness, was routinely labelled as hate. Your thoughts being labelled as anger is certainly difficult, but your thoughts being labelled as hate is, I don't want to say oppressive, but you tell me.
You know, it's the typical, hey, why are you getting angry that you've been systematically oppressed and abused for centuries?
When you haven't.
You know, I'm not responsible for all of that.
Yeah, neither am I, even if it did happen.
So, can you just calm down so that we can have a productive discussion, okay?
A productive discussion wouldn't hinge on emotions whatsoever. It should surely hinge on whatever disputes are at hand. And I'm not just talking to the feminists at this point, I'm talking to the various orbiters whose only loyalties belong to their favourite celebrity. You know, you're just bitter and angry and we're just laughing at you. You know what that is, don't you? Virtue signalling. It's no different from saying, I have love, you have hate. It's me good feelings, you bad feelings. And even if that is an accurate summary of events, all you're doing is commenting on emotional states. And I'm sorry, but facts don't care about your feelings. If all you could do is talk about feelings, you're nothing but a fatuous, time-wasting sap. Yes, I realise that's pretty close to the point you're trying to get across, Alice, but you haven't actually presented anything except various conjectures about gendered emotions and unsubstantiated conjectures about oppression. But at least it's not accompanied by an insatiable barrage of debate me, bro. So, I'm presenting you with an appreciable helping of my patience. Apologies for the tangent. We're all, grieving.
Affective injustice. You have to regulate your emotions in order to partake in respectable people conversations.
Yes, that is literally how it works. Doesn't matter if you call it intellectual something. If all you're accomplishing is overtly emotional drama. Yeah? Oh, I wish I had just died. If I had just died, I would become untouchable forever. Alas, I'm alive, so I can't say shit. Weird how that works. Let's move on.
And that reminds me of a poem I read recently from Langston Hughes in the context of racial segregation in the US. It goes as follows.
Pray tell, what does this have to do with men and women? Is it anything to do with incarceration rates? I somehow doubt it.
Go slow, they say, while the bite of the dog is fast. Go slow, I hear, while they tell me, you can't eat here, you can't live here, you can't work here. Don't demonstrate. Wait, while they lock the gate.
Would it be cool with you if I go ahead and protest against those sentiments? No? Just as well, I don't have the free time and or disposable income to do so. And if I did, the government would at best pay no attention and at worst arrest me. Ho-hum.
It's the same thing with climate change,
Why is Greta Thunberg shouting?
She's not. At this point, she's mostly giggling and posing for publicity shots. Having moved on from the pinch-faced bitching for which she gets standing ovations from world leaders. Maybe that's why women express anger, because it gets them standing ovations from world leaders.
Can she just calm down and open the discussion, or is it too much to ask? Does she think she's better than us? That she knows better than us? She probably can't even tell the difference between a beech leaf and an oak leaf.
What? It's more that she can't tell the difference between a scientific model with accurate predictions and an authoritarian model without any. Which in any case has exactly bastard all to do with gender. Except insofar as the only reason she can take up that mantle is that no one would take a teenage boy seriously without the oxytocin advantage of the perpetual baby face of a fetal alcohol syndrome child. What the fuck is your point exactly?
That's an argument I heard recently by the anti-climate activists Mr. Nature here in France.
Dude, I don't give a shit. This is not the point, and that's a man, so it's not your point either.
Common sense, people, listen to the wise man. Oh.
that forced giggling of yours while you express your frustration, is that to make you sound less angry? Not really practicing what you preach there, are you? Why not just embrace the anger in its purest form? You know why. It's because the devil doesn't look like the devil.
In fact, the growing popularity of female rage is a direct response to that. It's not so much a rebellion against patriarchy, but more against the affective injustice it creates. It's like we hate patriarchy, but we hate even more that we can't say that we hate it.
Yeah, but you can, though. In a world where hate speech is illegal, you can nevertheless say you hate the patriarchy. You can even say you hate men, and it doesn't count as hate speech, even if you scream it at the top of your lungs while beating the shit out of men. Whereas I'm saying all this in a rather calm, non-confrontational tone. Yet I'm still running the risk of getting cancelled purely because of the things I'm saying. People will still call me hateful for it. That's why I have to record these things in an audio-video format, because if I simply wrote it all down in a blog, you'd be reading it in the angriest voice and the most raging face you could possibly imagine, right?
What I found interesting, though, was that men created the first stories of female rage. You ready to hear about those juicy stories? Let's go for it.
History's first conceivable stories were not, so to speak, written. They were oral traditions of unknown origin. We have no reason to assume those origins were male in nature or in anything else. Even a great deal of the Bible is based on eyewitness accounts of random women. Did you know that? Do go on.
The first story is that of Thais, the 4th century BC Greek Etheria. It's a sort of ancient sex worker for high-value people.
An escort. We call them escorts. you have the benefit of euphemisms, you might as well use them.
And she instigated the burning of Persepolis in resolution of a 100-year grudge.
Sounds like rather a pertinent cautionary tale, doesn't it?
Another story that a Patreon and friend shared with me is that of Kannagi, a Tamil woman who put fire to an entire city as a form of revenge against the unjust murder of her husband.
Yes, I'm seeing a theme here. Man make fire, woman burn down city.
Kannagi is described as a chaste woman who remained loyal to her husband despite him cheating on her by using her own money and jewel to pay for a dancer he fancied. That's a wild patriarchal story we've got here.
Really? A story about a piece of shit man and a devoted, long-suffering woman? If that's patriarchal, then feminists have a hell of a lot to answer for, don't they?
And then he comes back to her. She still loves him. He gets wrongly accused of having stolen the queen's anklet, gets beheaded for it. She hears the news, goes to the king to prove him he wrongfully killed her husband. The king can't bear it and literally dies of remorse.
Male fragility, am I right?
The queen can't live without her king and dies as well, and Kannagi puts the city on fire after advising the old, disabled and kids to evacuate. Because even if she turns into evil woman mode, she's still a social justice warrior who cares about the people.
Okay, so she just burned to death countless able-bodied, breeding age, innocent people. Now she's left with a load of children and a load of old people and a load of disabled people whose homes she just burnt down and whose families she just murdered. Yeah, that does kind of sound like a social justice warrior. I can't tell how sarcastic you're being, but I'm certainly enjoying it.
So yeah, these were the stories that were written by men, and you can feel it in the way they are written, structured.
Only insofar as they feature female characters who are flawed. And that's if you consider mass murderous revenge arson to be a flaw when women do it. Have you heard of a character named Wanda?
So now what happens when female rage is written by women?
The same thing.
Let's go back in time a little bit to 1968, the year my mother was born, and the year where Valérie Solanas published the SCUM Manifesto. The SCUM in SCUM Manifesto stands for Society for Cutting Up Men.
Yes. Is it at all surprising that certain academics love it when you take a passage from Mein Kampf and change Jews to men? How surprising can it be given that those very same academics worship the SCUM Manifesto?
Life in this society being, at best, an utter bore, and no aspect of society being at all relevant to women, there remains to civic-minded, responsible, thrill-seeking females only to overthrow the government, eliminate the money system, institute complete automation, and destroy the male sex.
See what I mean? The SCUM Manifesto makes Mein Kampf look like Charlie and the fucking Chocolate Factory. And yet, they're only interested in rewriting Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Men are trash sounds very conservative compared to that.
Conservative means preserving that which is already established. The fact that Solanas was able to get that published, let alone get it world-renowned, is a strong indication that she was merely walking through an open door.
Solanas politicized female rage by showing 1. Where it came from.
Women? Feminism?
Men, patriarchy.
Huh.
And 2. Where it should be directed to.
Let me guess.
Again, men, patriarchy. Researchers Shani Orgat and Rosalind Gill described female rage as having a moment.
It's a hell of a long moment, isn't it?
And I feel like the SCUM Manifesto perfectly encapsulates that. Solanas really had her moment with this manifesto.
Notice you're confirming that it is a manifesto.
One thing I find really interesting though is that both critics and feminists were quick to reassure people that, the SCUM Manifesto is fiction. It's a fantasy. Don't believe it, it's not true.
Whereas you disagree, because you know what a manifesto is. By definition, it's not fiction. It's non-fiction. What to you would count as evidence that she was dead serious? If she actually shot a guy? Because she actually shot a guy, Alice.
It's coherent with the current depictions of female rage that almost entirely happen in the context of a horror movie, where we assume that everybody is a bit mad anyway. In other words, female rage is accepted, entertaining, only when we know that it's not real, it's only ironic, it's fictional.
No. Feminists will claim that the SCUM Manifesto is just fiction when they know full well that it isn't. They've been flooding academia with messages just like that without any pretense of insincerity. They say to each other what they want to hear while they tell everyone else they're not saying it. It's gaslighting 101. They never get beyond 101 despite it being academia. They never get beyond the room in which they are subjected to it.
But what is happening on social media right now is different.
No, it is not.
Creators, women are starting to connect different occurrences of female rage and create something out of it.
Yes, that's what feminism is. Always has been.
So the Gone Girl segment, for example.
Cool girl is hot.
That's a movie about a serial killer. She's literally cutting up men. Men who've never abused her at all. And feminists seem to love this character. Are you connecting the dots yet?
What is now referred to as the good for her trope. The good for her trope is about legitimizing revenge. You've been hurt, abused, now is your time to get closure. Now is your time to retaliate. It's deeply cathartic to watch these movies.
I imagine it would be if you were right in the centre of the Venn diagram we call the Dark Triad.
In the context of female rage, cathartic movies serve to create a space for that anger to exist. But ultimately, the goal is for you to leave that anger behind and find peace, to go back to life and live hand in hand with patriarchy again.
See how they talk about the patriarchy like it's their god? It is, even though they hate it. That's how Gnosticism works. You believe in God, but you believe he is evil. And when you're taking revenge on God, it never ends. It is never sated. It is never soothed. It is never satisfied. Every day is a living hell, fraught with an obsession with the phantom pain from a thorn that was never in your side. Do you know what I mean?
In other words, female rage as it exists today is a more radical version of something that has existed for a very, very long time, the female complaint.
Maybe you do know what I mean.
Berlin defines it as something which operates as safety valves for surplus female rage and desire. Thus, the female complaint constitutes a space of resistance to the messages and practices of patriarchal dominance.
When women complain, it's called complaining. When men complain, it's called male fragility. Man flu, mansplaining, man interruption, and so on. Patriarchal dominance, ladies and gentlemen.
While implicitly foreclosing any action to change the fundamental conditions of the complaint's production. It's a complex way to put it, but basically
it's basically what I just explained. Your grievances are based on your invented bizarro world god, so you complain and nothing ever gets better because you don't want it to get better, you want to complain. Not necessarily you, Alice, I'm not entirely sure where you're coming from. I mean the phenomenon you're talking about. It's not female rage, it's not even feminine rage, it is feminist rage. It's ideological. Though it's not born from ideology, it's born from the nature of a spoiled child. It's, I want food. No, not that. I want my favourite food. No, not that. That's not my favourite food. I want my favourite food. I want you, and now I want you to cut my favourite food into small pieces. And that, I don't know which piece to eat first. Children will continue to do this. until someone with a backbone gives them a damn good learning. What this Gnostic feminist ideology does is keep girls suspended in this undeveloped emotional state for their entire childhoods and their entire adult lives. It involves these endless corridors of pseudo-intellectual sophistry and postmodern academic jargon, but it's the same thing as a child yelling, I want this, I want that, I want more, I want everything. It seems normal to us because it's been normalized, but it shouldn't be. It's an abomination. It is turning the population into lolloping retards who shit in their adult diapers and don't know which toilet to use. Don't fall for it. I would say don't let your children fall for it either, but I don't have children, so I guess I don't get to say that. But surely a no-brainer is a no-brainer. I should hope I get to say that.
And you understand there's something wrong there and that it's not in your power, but the conversation ends with a, well, that's the way it is.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. As a great man once said, they don't think it be like it is. But it do.
Author Molly Cara May shared how angry she felt after her postpartum body completely broke down. Very quickly, she directed her anger towards men who didn't have to deal with the consequences of pregnancy or pregnancy itself.
It's kind of transphobic, isn't it?
She said, women's bodies suffer at the hands of men and then suffer, bringing the next generation. And we're all okay with this?
No, a lot of people are not okay with women being the ones who get pregnant and give birth, but they should be, because that actually is how it is. Is there any truth about human biology that is more fundamental than that? Other than food goes in, shit comes out. This remains true, even if you change your definitions of food and shit, and no amount of buggering about with the definitions of man and woman will change the fundamental truth. Change what you can change, but accept what you cannot change. So, either you hold your nose and accept the results of 4 billion years of evolutionary trial and error, or, I don't know, you'll have to genetically engineer humans into organisms that reproduce asexually, or something. That doesn't sound like much of a picnic now, does it? Doesn't sound like the kind of thing that's any easier to accept. And it would most definitely not be progressive. It would be regressive to the tune of like 1 billion years.
May said that she expressed her anger by becoming violent, by doing everything she could to make her husband feel sorry, including sticking urine-soaked pads that she had to wear because of incontinence on the wall, as a sort of artwork. Like, we can all agree that what she did was very toxic.
Yeah, I wish we could. But I guarantee you'll hear all manner of iterations of the good for her trope.
May's message is that what she did then was absolutely pointless and unnecessarily harmful. What she preaches now is that female rage be redirected towards something creative, towards external action.
She was already being creative. She was creating a person. You might say it's a privilege to be able to do that. But it wasn't good enough. It pissed her off. And she took it out on the people who don't have that privilege. You see what I mean? It's not just endless, it's backwards.
How best can we join the choir? When we are filled with rage, how do we use that anger?
Well, creatively, like you just said, not destructively.
To that, Jess Phillips, a Labour MP member, says, basically organise the feminist movement that has been going all my life.
Jess fucking Phillips is a sadistic authoritarian warlord with more chips on her shoulder than a breaded trout in the ravenous arms of a fat bastard. She has done less than nothing to help women. All she does is hate men. Actively, systematically. She doesn't even deny it. She's proud of it. She finds it hilarious how much she hates men. If it's toxic to stick a few piss pads to the wall of your own house, then Jess Phillips is an intergalactic supervolcano that's been belching radioactive mushroom clouds into the cosmos since the dawn of fucking time. If you want to use your rage to create art and music and poetry, that's great. That might actually help you get through it, while possibly enriching the lives of others. You know what you shouldn't do with your infantile rage? Go into politics! That will only exacerbate it and turn it into everyone else's problem. Art can turn rage into a thing of beauty. Political power turns rage into a thing of hate. Actual, institutionalized, authoritarian hate. Especially in a political climate in which that kind of rage is normalized. You'll notice I'm expressing some rage of my own right now, and that might come across as ironic, but please do notice I'm a lowly space leper in a throttled corner of the internet, and I'm raging about a politician who is presently in office. Someone with the power to actually affect people's lives en masse. And if you can't see that broken seesaw in the balance of power for what it is, if all you can see is a privileged patriarchal dominator oppressing some innocent submissive slip of a girl, then you might be long since far too gone already. I am no longer interested in feeding you, let alone cutting your food into bite-sized chunks. I get where you're coming from now, and it is the worst place in the world. So we're done. I'm gonna go ahead and shall we say, rage quit. Remember, folks, don't like, don't subscribe, don't hit the bell, don't leave a comment below. Nothing works. It all gets yeeted. But please do follow me on alternative media where things do work, and please do join the Subscribe Star or the Patreon. I desperately need it. And save this video for posterity, because you're about to see the kind of catharsis that you are not allowed to see. Roll the tape, Johnny!